Peoples? What's up? Jason here with the One Stop Co-op Shop with another ranking video. Y'all know the Pandemic is my favorite game. The Pandemic line of games is my favorite series of games in all of board gaming. Adjacent to that, Matt Leacock has the Forbidden series, which are very similar. They're all cooperative games. They're in slightly shorter packaging, shorter play times, easier rule sets for that accessibility. Sell them at Target and Walmart and go to a general audience, but with a lot of the same cooperative fun that is to be found in the bigger Pandemic games. Right now, as I record this in 2023, we got 4 Forbidden games. So there's a story in the rulebook which indicates we might get a couple more along the way, but for now, let's talk about the 4 that we have, and since I know that's what y'all want, at the other end of talking about them, I'm gonna rank them. So let's go to the videotape and talk about Matt Leacock's Forbidden series. First Forbidden game to talk about is the OG in the series, Forbidden Island. In this one, you are adventurers, basically treasure hunters. Let's not mess around over here. You're going to be walking around doing your thing along the way. After every turn, you're going to draw from a deck of cards and slowly collect sets of elements. So you have earth and fire and air and all that kind of thing. As you're going to go on, you're going to trade cards, trying to set yourself in a hand management style. Once you're able to get 4 cards of an element and land on the matching tile, you discard and you earn yourself a treasure. Do that 4 times, escape, and you win. In terms of a long-term victory condition, this is my least favorite in the Forbidden series. The cards are very static, they don't do anything. It's directly lifted from Pandemic, so if I wanted that hand management, I have a better game right in front of me that does a lot of the same things. So long-term condition, this one will be number 4. However, you also have to contend with the obstacles, that short-term crisis that is calling your attention. That is represented by the sinking island tiles. After every turn, you're going to draw a card which corresponds to a location. That location is going to flip to its sunken side. If it is sunken, it is going to disappear. Over the course of the game, you are going to slowly watch your island turn to nothing. You're going to wonder where everything is going. Honestly, if the long-term victory condition is my least favorite, the short-term crisis is my favorite in the Forbidden series, even after all these years. Playing this with a range of audiences, young and old, casual and hardcore, I always can get into the crisis. Oh my God, we're sinking and we're gonna die. And the variable levels kind of tune difficulty. So on the highest level, it's difficult enough even for the most hardcore gamer. So in terms of Forbidden Island, I'm here for the sinking tiles. The second in the line of Forbidden games is Forbidden Desert. Similar motif, you're adventurers, only this time you're in the desert. Your plane has crash landed, and it's a good thing that we are trying to find the pieces of a flying machine. Once we find them, we have this little toy going on. We're going to find the pieces and install them. This is famously a very extraneous piece of componentry, but I dig it. So for that long-term goal, you're going to be going around exploring as that exploration piece that Forbidden Island didn't have. You're mostly going to find gear. Every once in a while, you'll find one piece that belongs to the spaceship. And then once you find the other piece, you go ahead and match the arrows. The piece pops up right there. You have to go get it. Once you fetch the 4, then you're done. Like the entire package of Forbidden Desert, it's just solid. It works in terms of the geometry and getting to the right place at the right time to pick up your piece. It is a really solid movement puzzle, which I enjoy. It doesn't quite have the sizzle of some of the victory conditions of the other Forbidden games, so this one is number 3 on my long-term victory conditions list. But let's talk about those desert tiles. As I'm trying to find those ship pieces, this board moves depending on what I pull out of this deck. As it moves, there's going to be sand that is collecting all over the place. And I'm going to get a few tools to remove sand, but the sand is going to pile up and pile up. It's simple, it's visceral, I can see it, so it's a very easy story to tell, whether I'm playing solo or whether I'm playing with a group. I can really play up the idea of, oh my god, there's sand all over the place, we're being burned alive. Running the bot, moving the tiles is no muss, no fuss. So in terms of that short-term crisis, what the board is doing to me, very exciting. My second favorite overall of that aspect of the game in the series. Number 3 in the line is Forbidden Sky. Our adventurers have escaped the desert and they are now on a flying platform, and they are looking to blast off into space with a spaceship, but the spaceship needs power, so we need to construct the platform in such a way that we can get power to the spaceship. Mechanically, this one is completely unique in the series. Most of the time you're walking on the tiles. Here, you're laying the tiles in a way where you're completing that series circuit and getting power to your spaceship. After you lay all those tiles and you make your series circuit, which is very viscerally presented with the game componentry, with the metal pieces and the magnets, in terms of that long-term victory condition, this is by far my favorite in the Forbidden series. From the very first tile placement, you have to be aware that the ultimate goal is to make that series circuit, so you can't just place tiles anywhere. You have to be very specific about where they go. And even though putting together the componentry to make that series circuit can be really fiddly and frustrating sometimes, it does offer a pop at the end that I will not spoil. Hint, it has to do with the spaceship. And also, I enjoy the fact that it is the long-term goal in Forbidden Sky that is the visceral piece. In the other Forbidden games, it's that short-term crisis. The long-term putting together of the pieces really pops for me, totally works. Now, in terms of that short-term crisis, that all comes from the deck, and it's quite conceptual and abstract. So as bad events come out, you're going to be struck by lightning, or you're going to be blown off with a gust of wind. That does feel a little bit abstract. I've heard gamers complain about lack of control in some senses. For me, I love the puzzle of finding those safe spaces, hiding out, letting bad cards go, and then making my big rush towards victory, which is completing the circuit. But it is true that that short-term crisis is quite abstract, so I'm going to go number 3 on my list in terms of that short-term crisis, but definitely number 1 in terms of putting that victory together. Man, I love Forbidden Sky. Final game we're going to discuss is new here in 2023, Forbidden Jungle. The adventurers have come off of the spaceship, they've landed in the jungle, they're that much closer to their ultimate goal, which is the ruins of Arceus. I have no idea what Arceus is, it's in the rulebook. We'll see what happens with the ultimate story of the Forbidden series. Regardless, the adventurers are back in familiar territory, exploring tiles like in desert, uncovering them one by one. The game's ultimate goal is that we find one of these portal spaces and use spatial movement. I am in the jungle and all of a sudden a spatial puzzle broke out. If I'm on a space like the configurator, I can start sliding these tiles. Eventually, I'm going to want to get 4 crystals around the portal, and that will lead to my victory. In terms of that long-term goal, I have some thoughts about the marriage of exploration and sliding puzzle that I'll share in my final thoughts. But just for this part of the game itself, it's very interesting. The sliding block puzzle is fun, and also there is a space like the destruct switch where I can just go boom, explode tiles. That's very viscerally satisfying. That's what I look for in the Forbidden games, those moments where I can have that bodily sense of joy from manipulating the board. Forbidden Jungle definitely does that. In terms of the short-term crisis, the opposition that the game presents, that's modeled by these creatures. You have these Cthulhu-like monsters that are walking on stalks. You have their hatchlings and eggs The deck will have an organic quality to it where the eggs will grow into hatchlings, the hatchlings will grow into adults, the adults will spin webs, eventually moving on to the character, stinging them. Theoretically, this should be my favorite implementation of the short-term crisis. It's so evocative, so fun to look at on the table. However, the way it plays out in the deck is a little bit difficult. So you can pull one card that says move a group. You have to move every instance of that group. So you are moving, 3, 4, 5 piles in a row. Sometimes that can be hard to track, or spawning, or the different things that the characters do. It takes a long time. Sometimes I forget. Did I spawn over here? Did I make webs with this one? I made webs with this one twice. There is a surprising amount of upkeep that actually powers this very cool monster system, which added a bit more friction that I like in my Forbidden game. So in terms of evaluating that short-term opposition, it's going to float behind the earlier ones, Desert and Island, around with Sky. This one's just a little bit behind because at least with Sky, it's easy to manage that card flip. Here, it takes so long to implement the bot, even though it is so thematic. So even at number 4, there is a lot to offer with the short-term opposition to you attaining victory in Jungle. So that is how I think of the Forbidden series. I break it down in terms of that short-term crisis opposition that the player has to overcome and those long-term victory conditions. I hope you found that breakdown helpful. But I know what y'all want. Y'all want to see the rankings. Which one do I prefer up top and how do they fall in behind? And I'm going to give you that ranking with one big asterisk. These are the Forbidden games in order in which Jason Perez, is going to pull out one of those games and lay them out for a solo game or a game within my game group. Having said that, there's a lot of difference in terms of context. Certain games fit in certain contexts. Those rankings will go up and down depending on who I'm playing with. This ranking is just me personally, my level of enjoyment when it comes to the Forbidden games. My number 4 Forbidden game is Forbidden Island. At the end of the day, it is for the youngest audience. It's the game I pull out with my 8-year-old. Or if the people are new to cooperative games and I want to show them something, evocative and exciting. And it is exciting. I said that it was my favorite of the oppositions with the disappearing tiles. I could really play it up. Oh my God, we're sinking and everything. For me, it's a solved puzzle. I have to jack it up to the highest difficulty to get any kind of challenge. And I don't enjoy doing that because then the game is playing me, so to speak. So for me, it's not one that I'm going to pull out and just play, but it's a very good game. My number 4, Forbidden Island. My number 3 is Forbidden Desert. So in my opinion, Forbidden Desert is my rock-ribbed solid game that I can take to any game night where I don't know who's going to be there, introduce them to cooperative games, lay down Forbidden Desert and have a good time. It's so streamlined, simple, easy to understand. Both aspects, the growing threat of the desert, as well as, looking around, making that connection with the chip pieces and flying off. That's all simple, easy to understand, evocative, easy to implement. So in terms of that solid experience, Forbidden Desert is my go-to, my number 3. My number 2 is Forbidden Jungle. Now, I have some difficulties with this one, 2 in particular. Number 1, it begins as one thing, you going around and exploring and turning over tiles, and then it becomes that sliding block puzzle where you have to move the tiles around. So I'm okay when a game gives me 2 different flavors. It's kind of like chocolate and raisins or whatever you prefer. But there are times where those 2 flavors don't quite mesh. And I think in Forbidden Jungle, it's just a little bit further than I'm willing to stretch in terms of my game experience. I enjoy it, but I do have that friction there. Another friction piece is the implementation of the bot. It's you do multiple card flips, and each one you have to kind of move multiple pieces. You lose track. You might lose a little bit of momentum implementing it. So I wish that for as fun as the monsters were, they were easier to put down. It's ahead of Desert as my number 3. I regard them as kind of right here, Desert and Jungle. For Jungle gets the edge for me, Jason Perez, playing on a game night, because I would rather have the more ambitious game, the more evocative game that's flawed over the solid game. So, it depends on your taste, depends on what you like. But for me, the fact that Jungle really goes for it, even if it falls short a little bit, I still really enjoy, running away from the monsters, and it still feels really good at the end. So number 2, Forbidden Jungle. And my number one by a country mile. And this one is makes me different than a lot of reviewers you might see out there. They make their own forbidden list, or a commenter will come in and say, I saw somebody else's forbidden list. It doesn't look like yours. Too bad. I say that with all the love in the world. Love for y'all and love for my number one, Forbidden Sky. I love the puzzle of the game. It is the purest puzzle. If you miss a piece, it's in the wrong place, and you can't quite make those connections, that the whole game kind of like, goes up in flames. For a game group, I can see that being frustrating. But for me, if I'm playing solo, I'm playing with a trusted game group, I totally love figuring that out. And then the pop at the end, you put the series together, whatever happened with the little ship, I think that is amazing. So I get why people have an issue with putting together that puzzle, maybe a little bit too constrained for them. I also understand that people find it very lethal. So, I mean, the game could, you could finish your turn and then, get beaten around by the wind or struck by lightning and just die like that. So for me, that's a learn to play issue. I know what is in the deck. The deck is not that big, so I kind of know what's coming and how I can protect myself. And sometimes I find myself kind of hiding under a storm shield or not doing much with a certain piece for a couple of turns. I don't mind that because once I get through it, I can, setting myself up and drawing extra tiles. And then once I'm ready, bam, I'm able to, get a lot done, use my events or whatever it is. I could talk about this game a whole lot, which is crazy because it's not the most popular Forbidden game, but it is, for me, my number one, Forbidden Sky. And so that is my ranking of the Forbidden games. I hope you enjoyed that. When we get all the Forbidden games in the series, when the canon is closed, then I will take another look at this ranking video. But until then, I hope you enjoy all the cooperative fun that is contained in the Forbidden series. This is JT with the One Stop Co-op Shop, warning that we'll see you at the next stop.